At the beginning of the film, we are shown a group of soldiers who are conducting reconnaissance in an area known as Hyena Road. During the mission, they notice a man from the Middle East carrying an explosive device to a mountainside. Realizing the danger he poses, the soldiers decide to eliminate the target and kill him on the spot. While the squad is waiting to return to base, a soldier named Ryan notices black spots on the road. Ryan suspects that the road may be mined and orders a sniper to open fire on every spot. Then the sniper makes another shot at the black spot and an explosion occurs. Suddenly, large detachments of enemies appear out of nowhere, cutting off soldiers from reinforcements. The detachment is forced to develop a new plan for retreat. In the process of fleeing, they discover a small village in the desert and decide to take up defensive positions. Upon entering the village, they find an elder who throws a grenade without hesitation. Ryan informs the base about this person, attracting the attention of his management. Captain Pete asks to describe the old man. He obviously knows something about this man. The elder politely invites them into his house, and Ryan instructs his soldiers to follow him. Inside the house, soldiers check their equipment and reload their weapons. Children calmly enter the room, carrying food with them. For them, war has become commonplace, and they are already used to its horrors. Suddenly, the wall next to the elder explodes, opening a passage to the enemy. The old man suddenly decides to go outside, and the soldiers say goodbye to each other, thinking that this is their last fight. Soon the elder returns inside, and for some reason the enemy stops the offensive. The squad has not figured out what happened, but Captain Pete seems to suspect something. Meanwhile, the general is discussing with Bashir Daoud Khan, also known as BDK, and his son the creation of a road called Hyena Road. BDK is an influential person and has a large number of soldiers under his command. The general wants Bashir to support the idea of building this road, as it is vital for defeating the militias. At first, BDK refuses, but later he and his son agree to support this project. After meeting Bashir, Captain Pete discusses him with his colleague and tells her that Bashir is going to spare. On the way there, Pete says that Alexander the Great had already tried to conquer Afghanistan, but even the land of this country was hostile against any invader. In Spare, Ryan sits down next to Jen, who is eating alone. They are lovers, but keep their relationship a secret. Suddenly, Pete approaches and meets Ryan, inviting him to go out to talk alone. During their conversation, Pete tells Ryan that he witnessed a tactical operation in which Ryan's squad was ambushed, and that he was unusually lucky. Pete explains that the militia retreated only because the elder resorted to the old custom and hid them in his house. Pete then suggests that Ryan go with him to find out the identity of this old man. That night, Ryan and Jennifer have a nice conversation with each other. Jen tells Ryan that they should stop their dating so as not to put their military career in danger. The man initially objects, but eventually agrees. The next day, Pete and Ryan arrive in the village, where they try to find out about the elder with the help of an interpreter. However, the elderly man claims that he is the only elder, and the one they are looking for is a ghost that can be found in the city of Kandahar. A local activist, Haji, also known as the Cleaner, helps Pete in his search. Haji informs Pete about the ghost's return and that his uncle has arranged to meet with him. Ryan then informs his group that they have a sortie planned for the next day, and also says that 2 soldiers from their army were captured by the militia. Upon learning this, one of the squad members becomes enraged. The next day, Pete, Ryan, and the rest of the soldiers listen to music to relieve tension before the operation begins. Then the column moves towards Kandahar. Before reaching his destination, Pete quietly drops off Haji. Pete says Haji is one of the bravest and most reliable people he knows. Eventually, they reach their destination, where Pete, Ryan, and the interpreter enter the house and meet with the elder. After a formal introduction, Pete hands the elder a reward for helping Ryan in the village. The elder refuses to accept the reward because he doesn't know what the money is really for. The elder leaves, and Pete tells Ryan that this old man is a legendary warrior who was nicknamed the Lion of the Desert, and he has returned for some reason. On the way to the cars, Pete explains to Ryan why this old man is called a ghost. He says that during the Soviet occupation of Afghanistan, no one managed to kill this warrior. Despite multiple wounds and injuries, he always remained alive. Pete explains to Ryan that the elder can become a valuable ally for their team, as the militia feel fear and respect for him. Suddenly, an explosion occurs near the column, but fortunately our heroes survive and leave the transport. Pete, Ryan, and the interpreter nimbly maneuver through the streets of the city, being exposed to heavy fire, while the enemies continue to gather on the roofs of houses. At a critical moment, Haji comes to the rescue again. The trio hurriedly jumps into the back of the truck, and Haji explains that he immediately went to them as soon as he heard the shots. Upon returning to the base, he admiringly tells Ryan about the consequences of this boundless battle and about the heavy losses suffered by the militia. After that, Pete expresses a cynical opinion that they will not have a victory in Afghanistan since the locals do not need anything from them. At the same time, Ryan remains more optimistic and believes that even one bullet can change everything. After this conversation, Pete meets with Haji. The military man wonders why the ghost agreed to the meeting if he didn't tell anything anyway. Then he instructs Haji to scout out everything about the village where the ghost lives, and the man immediately gets to work. Pete learns additional information through his communication channels, and Haji finds data that the land on which the village is located belongs to BDK. Then Pete asks Haji to arrive at Spare under any pretext. At this time, Jennifer is at a doctor's appointment. It turns out that the girl is pregnant, but for now she wants to keep it a secret. Haji arrives at Spare. There he, along with Ryan and Pete, discusses Bashir Daoud Khan's possessions. It turns out that Bashir rents land to farmers, and if they can't pay in time, they have big problems. One of these farmers is the son of a ghost. That's why the ghost came back to protect the honor of his family. Ryan then informs Pete that he has snipers in the area who can observe what is happening in the area. After that, Ryan's squad prepares for another operation and checks their weapons and equipment. The next morning, the military takes up positions in the mountains near the village. There, they will be able to get a clear idea of what is happening by watching through the sight. At first, nothing happens, but soon a BDK column drives up to the gate. The gunmen go inside and kidnap the ghost's grandson. The sniper asks for an order to open fire to prevent the abduction, but Pete orders them not to shoot if the militants do not have weapons. The sniper struggles with his conscience, but in the end does not pull the trigger. Then Ryan runs out of the communication room in a rage. Jen follows him and says that they must adhere to the chain of command and the rules of engagement. Jen apparently wants to talk about her pregnancy, but Ryan interrupts her to talk to Pete, who has left the command center. Pete tells Ryan that BDK needs children as payment of debt, and they should not interfere, since Bashir is a very important asset for them. They then meet Haji, who tells them that the ghost will take revenge, following an old tribal custom. It turns out that Ghost and BDK fought in the same army against the Soviets, and that's when the enmity began between them. Pete thinks Bashir should be killed, but only a ghost can do it in a way that makes it look like a personal massacre, not a political one. He also tells Ryan that they shouldn't meet the ghost in the safe house. Meanwhile, the ghost is informed of the news about his granddaughters. This certainly angers and upsets him. In the next scene, Bashir's son leaves the beauty salon and is suddenly abducted by unknown people. After that, he is taken straight to the ghost. BDK also gets some bad news. Back to Ryan, who comes to talk to Jennifer. The girl shows Ryan a picture of their future child. The man says that this is the most beautiful thing he has seen in his life, and that he, of course, wants to become a father. Jen is crying because she thought Ryan would refuse to take on such responsibility. Meanwhile, Pete meets with the general to discuss the future of BDK. It is because of him and the constant attacks on construction trucks that the deadlines for the construction of Hyena Road are regularly postponed. In addition, Pete tells him that he intends to make the ghost his ally, and the general agrees because he hates BDK. Soon after, Pete meets a ghost in a safe house. Ryan informs his people about the shelter and the measures that need to be taken in case of a possible meeting between the ghost and the BDK. Pete discusses the recent abduction of 2 girls and gives the ghost money as a gift. He also wants the ghost to attend the opening ceremony of the road called Hyena Road, as he is the elder of this region. The ghost claims that he is just an ordinary farmer. When he finds out that there will be a BDK at the opening, his decision changes dramatically, and he agrees to come to the opening of the road. That night, Ryan meets with Jen in a secluded place. He says that if they survive this operation and can get out of there, he will definitely make her an offer, and the girl happily agrees. They then kiss passionately, and Jen asks Ryan to be careful. The next day, the general and his convoy go to the opening ceremony. Ryan and his men are holed up on the mountain to watch the safe house and the ceremony, as they don't know exactly where the BDK is going. After waiting a bit, they finally see Bashir's column heading towards the house. Pete calls the control center and asks to hack the calls in this area so they can listen to the BDK. Bashir arrives at the place, and the ghost slowly leaves the house. In the command center, Pete listens intently to their conversation. The ghost accuses BDK, his former student, of disrespecting him, to which Bashir replies that the ghost's son does not pay tax on his land. After the ghost pays off the debt, he asks to return his granddaughters, but BDK assures that this is impossible, since he has already sold them. Bashir asks to see his son, and the ghost takes his head out of the bag. Then BDK is going to kill the elder. Ryan wants to eliminate him despite the fact that Pete ordered him not to shoot. In the end, Ryan shoots and kills BDK anyway. When the group leaves their position, Pete reprimands Ryan for disobeying orders and killing BDK. The detachment arrives in the village where it meets the elder, when suddenly they are attacked by a militia that outnumbers them. Ryan's squad is joined by a ghost, and they are struggling to escape from the enemies. Realizing that it will not be possible to escape, the military hide in the house. Ryan realizes that they can't get out, and that this is their last fight. The man asks the artillery to strike the sector in which they are located in order to take as many people with them as possible. Upon hearing this, Jen asks him to decline the request, but Ryan is adamant. In anticipation of imminent death, Ryan tells the ghost that he will become a father. He then apologizes to Jen. Soon after, artillery devastates this sector, destroying everyone who was in it. Then we are shown soldiers who are carrying out an operation to free children taken prisoner. There they find and rescue the ghost's granddaughters. The film ends with a ceremony at which they say goodbye to the dead soldiers, whose bodies are sent home. In the desert, the ghost's son visits his father's grave with his children. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel so as not to miss new videos.